I tried scaling this Shopify store right here, which was doing roughly $70,000 a month, to multi six figures, specifically over $300,000, and I only gave myself just 3 months to make it happen. I've scaled multiple e-commerce brands in the past to $100,000, $200,000, even $1 million a month. I wanted to kind of take it a step further and see if I could take on a much greater challenge and do multi six figures in a short period of time rather than the usual 100K per month that most YouTubers boast about. So the ultimate goal was pretty big, but I wanted to keep the plan to scale to multi six figures fairly simple. I started off my journey by directly focusing on the main foundation because it was already an established e-commerce brand. I did not necessarily have to go out and do any type of product research. I did have to start off with the foundation, and with Google Ads, because I did use Google Ads to mostly scale this brand, the foundation starts with your backend. It starts with your conversion tracking. I started off by going onto the website itself and by using a special Chrome extension called Google Tag Assistant, which let me know exactly how many different tags were firing at any given time. And what I saw surprised me to the core. I saw 6 different conversion tracking tags firing, and in fact, some of these tags were actually invalid or missing an account ID, which meant that it was not even installed properly. That was a big bummer because this meant that the website was probably getting slowed down because of this improperly set up conversion tracking tags. And the reason why I even started up with conversion tracking is if the data that you're getting in is inaccurate, no amount of ad spend can save your e-commerce brand. The data that is coming into your ad account acts like a light at the end of the tunnel. It guides your campaigns towards the ultimate goal of finding your ideal customer. Without proper data coming in, this becomes extremely difficult to do so. Once I realized the conversion tracking issue, I got to work by solving it directly within the Google Ads. So I went on over to tools and settings, and under measurement, I went on over to conversions. I ended up installing this conversion tracking tag, which is called YM Purchase, because this is a brand under my Google Ads agency, Your Marketing. And we basically let the other 2 tags still continue to run in the background, but we did end up fixing them as well. And what we did is we basically changed them to secondary. So now the campaigns themselves, they would only take the data coming in from this primary conversion tracking tag. Once we were done with conversion tracking, now on that same day, it was time to move on to the landing page, because the reality is no amount of ad spend can fix a bad conversion rate. And so in order to make the landing page better, I set out on a journey to basically study all of the competitors within this specific niche, the Japanese style t-shirts, because this is a fashion e-commerce brand. So what I did is I looked at some of the biggest competitors to see not what they were doing, but rather what they were not doing. Because with Google Ads, you want to understand what your competitors are not doing is sort of a golden mine for you, because now if you go ahead and get that done, you're going to be much ahead of 99% of your competitors. We noticed a lot of these landing pages were very simple in this general format. It was just nothing too unique about the brand. So what I instead did is I focused on the 3 core principles of what makes a landing page work. The first principle is the easy to use principle. The second one is fast to load. The third one is easy to interact with. The first one, easy to use, it's fairly simple and straightforward. If your landing page is not easy to use, if there's too much things going on, if the CTA is difficult to find, your landing page will fail. So what we had to do was we had to go into the brand, we had to make sure the CTA was clearly visible, the pricing itself was bold, it was bigger compared to everything else, and we had certain reviews going on for that product as well, which we were advertising. That made it very easy to use. The second one was fast to load. Obviously, if your website is very slow like this one right here, it's not going to convert well. So we focused on making sure our website was below 3 seconds page speed load time. And this brought us to the third and final thing, which was easy to interact with. If it's very difficult to go onto your other pages right here, or if you don't have a footer menu at all, or maybe it's just a single standalone landing page, for a lot of customers, this actually makes it difficult to figure out more about what your brand is about. So instead, we kept things very simple. We just laid it out very professionally, very sleekly. At the top, the menu just contained the collections, and that was pretty much it. With landing page out of the way, now I moved on to the back end side of things. This is where 99% of e-commerce brands fail. They forget to look at the back end, meaning the product feed. And trust me when I say this, product feed issues have the potential of destroying any chance of real success with your campaigns. With that in mind, I noted down what issues Google Merchant Center was telling me regarding the products. The best way for me to do this was to just go inside the product section under diagnostics and look at all of the issues popping up. It was basically a lot of issues like invalid GTIN numbers and also a bunch of other ones. Keep in mind, not every issue can be resolved within the Google Merchant Center. Things like invalid value GTIN. What I want you to keep in mind is that only 69 of the affected products were GTIN issues, whereas the overall disapproved items, it was 85. Now, it does say that there's missing value color, missing value age group for 1,600 products or SKUs, but the thing is, this was not in our main country, which is United States. So this was something we didn't really need to look into at the moment. And what we did is we went into the backend, into SimProcess, and we added all of the missing values in there. Simply doing that then gave us different direction into what this account could really achieve, because in February is when we launched the new ad strategy, and fixing up the Google Merchant Center issues was really a big eye opener for this brand, because the clicks started to actually drop down after we made those changes. That did not have a good effect on it. Here's what I want you to see. I want you to look at it at a weekly view right here, and it makes much more sense. What we did might seem like a bad thing because cost was starting to go down, but take a note at this red line right here. While we were making those changes, we were ultimately making the foundation extremely strong. And when the foundation becomes strong, Google rewards you by giving you higher quality traffic, which is gonna convert at lower cost per link clicks, at a lower cost per purchase. And that's exactly what happened here. The cost started to go down, but the conversion value, it started to basically stay the same, and even at the end start to improve, which means our return on ad spend was significantly going up just by making those foundational changes. Now, we started making the campaign level changes more in the middle of February and more towards the end right here, but just to show you what the foundational changes made, it was a pretty big impact. Within February, we can see even though the overall sales were down compared to the previous year, if we now take it to the previous period, we can also see it was slightly down, but now we were spending much less money and we were now at least much more profitable than before. We were still very far away from our goal of $300,000 a month in revenue. With the hard work out of the way, we started working on the ad strategy. And for the ad strategy, I kept the overall approach very simple. I followed the specific acronym, which I always do for majority of the brands. The acronym is called KISS, which stands for KISS, but it simply means keep it simple, stupid. The reason why I followed this acronym here is because, as I mentioned, there were already a lot of campaigns spending a decent amount of money, already getting decent amount of results within this ad account. We did not want to come in, just ruin everything just so that we could launch something of our own. So we kept things very simple. We kept the campaigns running while we started running some brand new campaigns. So these ones right here, which are currently still running to this day, we began running them within this ad account, and slowly over time, we paused these ones at the top right here, which were not getting us decent results. For example, this one was a Performance Max campaign running at a 1.78x ROAS. It was not profitable. This one was also cold traffic shopping campaign running at a 1.79x ROAS. These ones 1.11x ROAS, also 1.21x ROAS. For the launch, by the way, we kept it very simple. We followed the 2-1 launch strategy, which essentially means 2 shopping campaigns. In this case, it was Performance Max, 1 branded search campaign, and also we added another 1 here. So it was essentially the 2-1-1 launch strategy. It was 1 branded search campaign and then 1 cold traffic search campaign. This was a dynamic search campaign for Canada. We did not want to just focus on the United States here because we did notice just how competitive the USA was for this brand. So that's essentially what we kind of started with. We kept it very simple, just a 4 campaign setup, and as they started to get us results, we basically started to optimize them further. Before we could optimize anything, we actually had to wait a little bit. And the reason why we waited is because, again, we had just launched a brand new strategy. It technically does not make sense to go back in and just start optimizing things even though the results are not fully there yet. So we gave the campaigns about 7 to 14 days to run and really optimize, because we wanted to make sure that they were running up to their full power. And here's what we started to notice in the middle of February when sales were starting to go down. And let's go back to February. We basically launched the campaigns in the middle of February to the end, which is right here. Already we were starting to see some results going upwards, but we were not fully sure yet. So we gave it about 14 days, which led us into the month of March. Here's where the beauty started to happen. In the beginning of March, things were still slow, so we really made a very small optimizations. We just went into the campaigns and we basically optimized as little as we could. So it's changing things like shutting off the older campaigns, or maybe going in and removing the products which were not getting us results. And basically that led us to these specific campaigns which were running during this time period. We did start to see this little bit of an upward trend in terms of the ad spend, in terms of the revenue, which was a very good sign. So now we started the next step of this journey, which is basically going in and optimizing. We went into the specific products, we looked at what was spending the most amount of money, what was not spending the most amount of money, and just excluding the products that were not doing as well. And keep in mind, I always say this, as you start to get results with your current products, it's up to you as to how you go in and optimize the accounts further. You can go in and make up your own strategies, develop your own strategies from the basic setup. The 2-1-1 launch strategy turned into this funky 4-5-7 strategy. And what I mean by this is we just started launching more and more shopping campaigns, more search campaigns as we saw results coming in. Like for example, we saw certain products which were not doing so well. So what I did is I just went in and I just excluded these products right here, gave them their own campaign, and just whatever was working within this campaign itself, we just simply let that run. Essentially, our optimization was just excluding the bad products, increasing the budget of whatever was working, because as you can see, by this time we had already started spending roughly $300 per day, which was getting these results right here. We stopped looking at them because now this brand, what we did is we incorporated triple whale tracking. Triple whale was doing a much better job of just attributing the results to Google Ads and also attributing them properly to other advertising platforms. Regardless of that, we started really scaling up based on the results that we were seeing. And this really meant that we were seeing an uptick in results. I mean, month over month, we had already increased 38% in March, but that's not enough, because now as we began optimizing, as we began scaling the brand, we saw even greater changes happening within the ad account. It really was starting to seem like we were getting closer and closer to our ultimate goal of $300,000. But unfortunately, we were still way off from it, because now we were up to about $154,000. And by the middle of April, it really was not looking like we were about to hit that 300K per month in revenue, just because of how things were going. The overall results from March to the end of April, they were looking very positive, and overall we were very happy with the way the brand was going. If we just look at the overall chart right here, the conversion value going up, then everything is moving according to plan. To keep this going in the right direction, we could not lose hope. We focused on doing what we did the best, which is scaling these campaigns up more and more. By this time, we had already spent roughly $13,000 in a single Performance Max campaign, which before it was only relying on mostly on branded search and retargeting campaigns. We incorporated a lot more of these full traffic search campaigns. By this time, we had roughly 7 different campaigns running, both retargeting campaigns as well as full traffic campaigns, and the account was running very smoothly at almost a 3x ROAS. Keep in mind, the break even for this brand was a 1.7x, and the ROAS was actually a 4x and above. Again, Triple Whale was doing a much better job of telling us what was going on. I knew that we could not just rely on these campaigns or these budgets, so this is when aggressive scaling began. At the end of April was when we were coming towards Mother's Day, all of those special events, which this brand, by the way, could utilize very well. So what we did is we started incorporating Mother's Day sales into our search campaigns. We started incorporating more of them within the Google Merchant Center, the backend, in terms of promotions, and that's really what we needed to move the needle. I mean, Mother's Day was absolutely amazing, absolutely insane, and during the early month of May, we were able to, in just 19 days alone, cross roughly $136,000 in revenue. I mean, during the peak season of Mother's Day, we were doing roughly $10,000 a day in revenue. And keep in mind, this was a brand which just a few months ago was doing only $70,000 a month. And if we do $70,000 divided by 30, that's roughly $2,000 a day. We 5x the revenue per day within a short period of time, roughly 3 months. And so far in just 19 days alone, we have done $136,154. So if we divide that by 19, that's about $7,000 a day. And now if we multiply that by 30, we are on track to do roughly $214,000 by the end of May. Now, of course, as you see right here, after Mother's Day ended, the sales did go back down a bit, but in the recent time period, it has started to go back up. My prediction is by the end of this month, we will at least be in the range between $260 to $300,000 in revenue. Really, from this journey, there's a few key points I personally understood. Number one thing I learned was really scaling involves focusing on those few campaigns which are bringing in majority of the revenue and the results. And I like to follow the 80-20 rule, which basically states you should be focusing 80% of your attention on those 20% of the campaigns which are bringing you majority of the results. Really, the second thing I learned is without a proper system to really fulfill those orders, make sure they're getting shipped out on time, it really does not make sense to scale to $10,000 a day in revenue, because that's a very big responsibility on your systems. And if you fail to do even a small portion of the system properly, it's gonna bring down your entire system, and as a result, you will need to descale. But ultimately, the third and final thing I realized is just keeping it simple really does the trick. And if you want an update on how this challenge goes so far, or you want more of these kinds of videos, let me know down in the comment section below. But if you're doing $40,000 or more per month in revenue, you need just a little bit of extra help scaling your brand to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and book a free call with me to see how we can potentially work together and make that happen. But I want you to watch this Google Ads playlist right here on some of my other videos on Google Ads and how I scale using them.